Welcome to the new P&L, Patterns and Leaders. Every month, business leaders review a profit and loss statement to understand the results of their business. But what if there was another P&L? One that reflected the patterns, leadership, growth, trust, and human decisions behind those results. Today, we're exploring what history can teach us about the introduction of artificial intelligence into the workplace. Are organizations and companies truly transforming, or are they simply replacing the steam engine? Joining me is Kryssi Murrell, co-owner of K&K Accounting Services. Kryssi works closely with business owners who are constantly balancing financial responsibility, operational efficiency, changing technology, and the need to build organizations that can grow sustainably.
And joining me is Michael Winn, CEO of RBOA. Michael is fascinated by historical patterns, leadership, and the way periods of disruption create opportunities for organizations willing to rethink how they operate.
Kryssi, we have been talking over the last, this is now episode 5 of the new P&L, and we've really been talking about how we're going to explore the same sides of the same business, but what we realize is that the financial story tells us what happened, and the human story helps us understand why it happened. So let's go back to our kind of example that we've had in the past episodes where we have company A and company B, right? Both are, in this world right now in 2026, and AI is everywhere. They're trying to figure out where to adopt AI. Companies are investing in new technology. Both these companies are automating tasks and improving efficiencies, really trying to reduce the amount of time required to just get the work done. So on paper, the financial benefits might look similar, but underneath, these two companies are approaching transformation very differently. All right, so company A adds AI to their existing process and automates their tasks. They keep the same approval structure, maybe the same reports, maintain the same workflows, and really are measuring AI through time saved. And maybe they are really depending on the same decision leadership environment. Whereas company B is a little bit different. They are reconsidering how work should flow, period. They're redesigning roles around human strengths. They're giving people greater access to information. They're completely redesigning or thinking, is this a report we even need to have anymore? Which is ultimately beginning to reshape or redefine services and capabilities of every team member in the organization. So again, same AI technology, completely different transformation.
From a financial perspective, both companies may initially report greater efficiency, but over time, the organization that redesigns how work happens may create a far more value than the one that simply automates its existing processes. You have to sometimes reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, Kryssi, I think you're exactly right. I think there's a huge resistance to not disrupt the sacred cow, if you will, right? Yes. We've always done things that way, so we're just going to bolt AI onto that. We're gonna get into that. But you're right. The difference really is whether or not the organization is going to improve the past or imagine or reimagine what the future looks like.
Exactly.
So I want to take us back, think about kind of like in the early 1900s, all of the manufacturing at that time was all powered by steam engines. And that was the power source for manufacturing. And then electricity became the primary mode of power in the manufacturing world. But what happened was, and I've done some study on this, Kryssi, it's very interesting. And the thing that I found was that they really just they literally took the big steam engine, right? And think about the steam engine, right? What happened? People are like shoveling coal into the steam engine, shoveling coal into the steam engine, right? And then all of a sudden, electricity comes out. We're like, we don't need the people doing that little entry level work. What does that sound like?
Right, right.
Right now,
Right
right
now,
now.
right now.
Yeah. But so then they put then they put electricity in, but they put a big, they still had the big shafts, and they didn't they didn't restructure anything. They just changed the one power source, right? And I think we're in that same kind of um period and pattern where new technology comes in, but the first thing that we typically do is we just attach it to the old model instead of really trying to think about it in how can it be transformational, because adoption of new technology happens pretty quickly, but transformation that takes much, much longer. So the real breakthrough, the more I think about this, Kryssi, really didn't come from replacing the steam engine. What really happened was the leaders that were in those organizations started asking different questions.
Yeah,
And I think that is an interesting point.
I agree. How do you know what questions to ask, though? Huh? That's the question.
You're right. You're right. What value might be created with new technology? Maybe that's a question. But you know what, Kryssi? Here's the thing. Do you have an environment in your organization and company where questions can be asked, where people can ask a question about the sacred cow? Or is it
Right.
taboo to even bring it up? How dare you
Yeah.
even think
Bingo.
about, right?
Right.
So I get it. And the AI bolt-on problem really is a real deal because I see it everywhere. I just came back from a conference a week ago. There were associations from all over the state of Florida. We were all asking the same question: how do we get AI to help us do things faster? Create more better information, but really very few of those questions or those conversations um you know started asking, what if we did something different? Okay, so here's an example. This is what I was thinking about.
Okay.
So think about this. Think about another time in corporate industrial revolution where things really got turned upside down. Henry Ford, perfect example. So he wasn't he wasn't trying to figure out how do we make workers build cars faster. That's what he was trying to do, but what he did was, what if he asked this question: what if the cars moved instead of the worker? Because if you know about what was happening back then, what was happening is people were actually a group of people would go to the car, and then they would work on it, and then they would leave and they would go to another car, right? Because they were the air conditioning people, and they would work on one car, and then they would leave that car, go work on another car, right? And so Henry Ford was like, what if the cars just moved along and all the air conditioning people are right there and together, and each car came to them?
Right. Yeah.
Literally, that was the you know industrial revolution, and totally radically changed manufacturing. The assembly line was really part of what Henry Ford did, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, what's interesting, Kryssi, is this: that assembly line stop the people from having to walk over and go to this other car. I'm curious if the pattern is somehow repeating itself, because you know what I think? I think AI is kind of like the assembly line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Does that make sense? Because what
Yep.
if what we should do, like in a way, is not be so reliant upon the line, but recognize how important it is working together with the people that we're working on. So, like, almost like rip out the assembly line, right? But AI, because then we have our own assembly line like on us, right? It's right at our fingertips.
Right.
But we got to figure out a way to come back into that group. Remember we talked about it in one of the other episodes, that idea of collective achievement, working together, right? I
Yes.
think that is an idea. All right,
Mhm.
another example. Sears. Sears was People thought that Sears was a retailer, but Sears was actually a logistic company, because you think about back in the day, people would go to the general store, they would buy whatever was on the shelf, and if it wasn't on the shelf, they couldn't buy it. And Sears was like, what if the customer could choose from thousands of products? And so their catalog became the store.
Mm-hmm.
That was totally radical.
Right.
We don't think that's radical because we have Amazon.com.
Right.
Right? Or think about this. Think about all of these separate devices. Camera, GPS, music player, flashlight, calculator, all separate devices. Apple wasn't trying to create a better phone. They were trying to redesign what a phone was.
Mm.
And that's what I'm talking about when we talk about what if we started today and said, if we started this company today, knowing that artificial intelligence is embedded in and around every single team member, the question wouldn't start with what's the current workflow. We would be like, well, we could reconsider roles. We could
Right.
totally rethink you're right.
Yeah. It
So
would be a different thought process if it started today, if we started with AI.
yeah, because I think this is again amazing conference summit that I was just at. I loved it. I loved being with the people. There were amazing breakout sessions. The keynote was phenomenal. But everyone has a lot of people have started with this question: how can AI help us do this?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the better question is, would we still even do the thing that we're doing right now? Why are we, should we even do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because what if an agent does that, right? What if an AI agent is like, boom, that's done? Well, then now what? So I think it's pretty clear that the technology can change the tools like instantly. I think the organizations that are it's a much deeper question to begin to ask: are the leaders in an organization, do they have, is there enough trust for experimentation? That's what's going to happen in a time when the status quo and the admin just gets compressed because AI agents can do that. And do you, in your company, do you have a safe place, a safe environment of trust in your leaders that they can bring up an idea and someone not shoot them down, right? Can ideas be brought forward in a way that people feel safe and right?
Yeah, I think that takes the collective team. I think it takes everybody in the company. Like for small businesses, I'm not saying if you have a large business, you're going to take into account everybody's opinion and trust. But I think that for small businesses, if you have a team that trusts and is on board, it's much easier to redesign that in the implementation of it.
Yeah, Kryssi, right now I'm looking at so many different things in our organization and asking the question, do we really need this still?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this form even relevant anymore? And that can feel like uncertainty if you start pulling things that have been the way we've done it for decades. You start messing with that, people get nervous.
Yes.
So you got to have an incredible amount of trust that we're not just, hey, let's just try it. So you have to have that safe space where trust and confidence, is modeled. And I think that really what that sets us up for is the idea that, really the greatest transformation that came from that whole time period, from when they were like, hey, this electricity thing, when they really started thinking about reimagining the whole process and even the purpose of the company. Like literally, there are so many stories when I was doing my research on this, so many stories of so many companies around the turn of the century that literally became different companies. And that's the thing about history, is that it often repeats. And if it doesn't repeat, it often rhymes. And
Right.
I think for now, for us, that's really exciting. Um, well, here's a teaser for episode 6 as we're kind of wrapping up. I think, and we've kind of hinted at this, is that the technology can expand what organizations can do, but for sure, an organization can only grow as fast as its leaders and people are prepared to grow. What do you think?
I agree. Are you growing? Are you growing?
Oh, Kryssi, we're going to dig into that in episode 6. I cannot wait. I think it's going to be fantastic. We're so glad that you tuned in today. Remember, the numbers tell us what happened.
The patterns and leaders help us understand why.
We'll see you next time on the new P&L.